Okay, this is the right part. For anyone who hasn't seen it before, the ReSA vision is that research software and those who develop and maintain it are recognised and valued as fundamental and vital to research worldwide, which is usually a vision shared by many of our stakeholders. And our mission, our way of doing that, is to advance the research software ecosystem by collaborating with decision makers and key influencers. So having events like this where we can engage the community to talk about what we could do together. We work with a whole range of stakeholders. So this is just a couple of slides that mention some of those. I won't go through in detail, but you can go and follow any of the links at any point if you're interested. So we work a lot with funders. We have a funders forum that we've been running now for a couple of years, every 6 weeks online, and we've had 2 face-to-face or hybrid events now, which a number of people in this call have been involved with. We work with policymakers. In the past, we've been able to influence and be engaged with some of the international discussions on relevant policy. We also track national policy initiatives, and we'll talk a bit later in the call about how we're working a little bit with institutional policy now as well. We try and work broadly, as I said at the beginning, with community leaders and influencers, which can be anyone in the community. So we have events like this. Sometimes we do specific pieces of analysis, and we encourage the community. We try and act as a catalyst to create task forces on issues that are shared by a number of people in the community, and where it might be valuable for a number of community members, instead of just solving their own local issue, to come together as an international task force to solve the same issue, and then to share those learnings or best practices emerging internationally so that others can benefit. And so in the past, we also worked, for example, a lot on co-leading the development of the FAIR for research software principles with Research Data Alliance and Force 11. So we'll probably do an update in the next few months on what's happening in terms of adoption on the FAIR for research software principles. We've got some data coming in, and we'll try and get a blog together to give an update on that. Also starting to work just a little with publishers. There's been a ReSA task force on code availability running for a while now, and we're also thinking about other ways to do that in the future. In terms of our general strategy, our strategic plan for 21-23 is available online. I'll talk a little bit more at the end about some of our goals for 2024, but broadly, we aim to continue to increase the global information flows, which we see as a key part of our role, so to enabling people to find out what's happening all around the world and in different disciplines or areas, to encourage the creation of task forces, as I mentioned. See if we could create another stakeholder forum like the Funders Forum, but perhaps for a different part of the research software community. We're not really sure what that might look like yet, but open to ideas. And they continue to provide value to our organisational members, who are one of our main funding mechanisms that help give us sustainability. So ReSA is engagement, how we aim to work with the community. 3 main columns here on the left. As I said, we aim to enable global information flows through social media, newsletter, discussions like this, so that if you're coming into the sector, you don't need to read 50 other newsletters or lurk at a range of conferences. That there's some things on our website or our media. Events like this can help you quickly get up to speed on what's happening in the community. In the middle column, we aim to enable the community to engage with each other. So again, some forums like this or task forces are really the main way that we engage and enable that community engagement. And over on the right, we aim to evolve leadership of the global community. So we, every couple of years, have an open call for new members of our steering committee. And we work constantly with community organisations to discuss sustainability and organisational membership as a way to that. This is the aim of this forum, which I said briefly at the beginning. So hopefully we will achieve that today. I'm just going to skip that one. Just to explain a little bit of how we run. We founded in 2019 in recognition that there wasn't an organisation like ReSA in the international landscape for research software. There wasn't an international body, that there were fantastic national organisations, fantastic disciplinary organisations, fantastic community initiatives that might look at a particular issue like software sustainability or software citation. but there wasn't a way for everyone to come together and discuss about how to share best practice in a really transparent and accessible way, and perhaps to come together to be represented in broader discussions like UNESCO or OECD policy initiatives. We are legally a fiscally sponsored project of Code for Science and Society. There's some summary financial information always available online, and all of our grants are also available on Open Grants. We are funded at the moment primarily through project grants through organisations from Sloan Foundation and Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, and the Past Wellcome Trust and Ford Foundation and a couple of others. But this year we launched a paid organisational membership model, or late last year, which is aiming to raise about $100,000 a year as a base level sustainability for us. And we're close to achieving that. So we're very happy that that's going to give us some financial independence and sustainability going forward. This is who our current organizational members are. We'll be adding Volkswagen Foundation to that shortly as well, which we're very excited about. In terms of who the ReSA team are, our income this year has been slightly more than 200,000 US, which is mostly used for staffing, so it's spread across a number of people. So we're all on fractional loads, so we have staff all around the globe, and we'll talk a little bit more about what some of those people have been doing. And obviously, Kim's on the call today with us, which is fantastic. We have an international steering committee with all these people who volunteer their time, and some of them also lead some of the ReSA subcommittees of the steering committee. So Mark Leggett leads one on global partnerships, and Joris van Uitdaten leads one on the adore.software governance, which is the declaration on funding research software sustainability. And of course, there's Sharui. Welcome. Just this year, for the first time, we had community managers based in both Africa and Asia. Very small amounts of funding given our budget, but it was a great chance to start working a little bit more with people in those regions to learn more about what's happening in those communities and enable two-way flows. So Anelda Abendwald from Telarify was our African community manager, and she convened the first African research software Indabar in Cape Town in May with a number of stakeholders there. She's done some work presenting about things at ReSA in different forums in parts of Africa, including the ZAREN work in September. You can catch up also with other things that she leads to do with the research RSSE Africa, Research Systems and Software Engineers in Africa, all of their newsletters, and they just created a new LinkedIn group. We also had our first community manager in Asia, who is Saranjit Kaur Bogle, who is also the head of RSE Asia Association. So she's also done some fantastic things around the region, giving talks and raising awareness at a whole range of things, particularly at the NREN meetings. APAN is the Asia Pacific NREN. NREN stands for National Research something network, the people who provide the fiber, basically, that we all depend so much on, but provide that in the research sector. And we also have submitted a proposal to convene a workshop next year on advancing research software recognition and collaboration support in Asia as an NNI Shonen meeting in Japan. If you're familiar with the Dagstuhl meetings or the Lorentz meetings that happen in Europe, where an organization provides facilities in which communities can come together and run week-long events. There's one in Japan now run by NNI at Shonen, and so we hope that that will be successful, and we'll be able to have a grouping of about 50 of us this time next year, talking about what to do to really facilitate more growth in that region. I'll talk a little bit about the working groups or task forces that we have running at the moment. The first one of this is Pro for RS, policies in research organizations for research software, which has been co-convened with the Research Data Alliance, and it's supported by an RDA Tiger initiatives, which provides some facilitation support. And our facilitation support comes from the Netherlands Science Center and includes some of the time of Carlos, who's on this call, and his colleague Mikey de Jong as well. So it's a working group that focuses on research institution level policies to support research software. So university policies or research labs or a government research organization. Whereas most of the ReSA work is really done at a much higher level, working through other organizations that already work across the community, because we're not trying to reach everyone in the entire research software engineering community, and there's hundreds of organizations who already do that well with their different stakeholder groups and disciplines or geographic regions, etc. We ended up becoming involved in convening this group on trying to document what research institute policies already exist that support research software, and do some development of some things that might help enable that, primarily because people kept asking us and there was a bit of a gap, but we'd really like to then try and work with university consortia. We won't be trying to work with every research institution to share this information. The working group has about 8 co-chairs from all around the globe, so they'll also play a fantastic role in sharing what we come up with over the last 18 months. So you can join the group, join the email list just to keep involved in what's happening. It's just kicking off now. It's just finally been approved as a working group within the Research Data Alliance. So we'll be starting off 18 months of work now. And it does build on some work we've already done to collect a very short list of some of the institutional policies that do exist that support research policy. So you're welcome to use that already as a resource, but we'd love to know about other software. And if you look at that list, you'll see a lot of the policies that are already on it are more in things like licensing. There's very few organizations that has a policy solely for research software. TU Delft in the Netherlands does, but really the reality is that to support software in an institution requires a range of policies to mention research software, whether it's things on research data management, whether it's things on software licensing or open source software policies, or HR policies about recruitment and retention that recognize that skill set along with other open science skill sets. We have another working group or task force just starting to form called Site Software, and this is based on some thinking coming out of the Montreal event last month, but thinking before that, which aims to simplify citing software for researchers through unified community guides and automated community accepted solutions. So it's a collaborative effort involving a large grouping already. It's led by Chris Erdman from the Sci Life Lab in Sweden, involves people like Malvika Sharan from the Turing Way and Open Life Science, the Netherlands eScience Centre, the Research Software Directory, etc. And so it will aim to bring stakeholders together to help develop common guidance like a website and leverage the modular content from the Turing Way. So it just recognises that there's lots of information about how to cite software out there, but it's a bit confusing and maybe sometimes even contradictory. So making it much simpler to understand might be a fantastic way forward. Also aims to have a second phase of effort where we'll leverage the Netherlands eScience Centre's Research Software Directory to automate some of that. The team to develop the site software task force are working on a proposal at the moment to fund this and are looking for support. So we do have a program by which organizations can work with ReSA to facilitate support for particular working groups to enable them to have the kind of facilitated support that we're getting through RDA Tiger for our Pro for RS. There's a whole list of citations. You can access some of the presentations and slides from the Montreal event, which talk a lot more about this concept. There's a whole list there you can go through. We also have another task force just forming on software authorship and contributions. So Carlos, did you want to speak a little to that? Sorry to put you on the spot.
Yeah, sure, no problem. So this task force actually comes as an initiative that started during the SSI Collaborations Workshop earlier this year, where a group of people were discussing the different types of contributions that are made to software. So it's not only writing the code, but contributing to the design of the software, to the approving pull requests, and doing code reviews, and the different types of contributions that actually make the software possible, but that does that make you an author of the software or a contributor of the software or some other role? So trying to define a taxonomy of these types of contributions and how they can be assessed. And the idea is not to have like of course, this will be different from project to project, but the idea is to have some guideline on how can you define these different roles. So the task force is on just formed or just forming, and we're trying to get more support from the community and more input from different sources. So it's at the very early stages still. So I don't think I have a lot more to say than that.
Great. And I see we haven't got on that slide a way for them to get involved. If there is a way for interested people to contact someone, you put it in the chat or share, yeah?
Yes, I think at the moment the easiest way to contact the working group is either to reach out to people directly, so to Stefan Druskat or to me, or we have our GitHub repository. I'll put the link on the chat.
Thanks, Carlos. So I just wanted to talk a little generally about how ReSA tries to structure some of its content work, that we try and work across all these different areas. You've probably seen Brian Nosek's fantastic diagram here before, strategy for culture change, that says to get change in any system, but in our case, the research software system or research system, we need to look at all these different levels. We tend to sometimes reword that fourth layer from user interface to education and training. So ReSA tries to work across all those different 5. And again, I won't go through all these, but this is some links you can look at later if you're interested in either seeing some of the things that we've done or some examples of fantastic work done by other people in the community. Policy on incentives. We probably need to update that one to add some of the work that US RSE has released that Dan was talking about earlier. There's some things about community, particularly obviously the RSE community worldwide, some of the open source software conversations there. There's many fantastic things about education and training. And also infrastructure. So there's just a brief list to get you started if you're interested in any of those particular topics and didn't know what else was happening around the globe, a good starting point. As we get towards the end, I just wanted to highlight some nice work done recently by Dan and Simon about what RSE might look like in 2030. Dan, did you want to say a few words to that? Sorry, I'm putting you on the spot as well. Oh,
I think Dan left. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, he had to go earlier, I remember. So yeah, it's a nice paper or slide set that just gives us some ideas about what we might have achieved together as a community by 2030. That the value of software will be much more widely accepted across a range of organizations. The RSE career paths, we hope, might be mostly standardized. Of course, the paper specifies that none of this might happen, but we certainly hope that it does. And there's a number of efforts that are leading towards these kind of things that make it quite plausible that some of this would. 50 plus countries would have RSE associations. 50 plus professors focused on RSE. 1 university masters of research software engineering program existent by then. And then many universities will also offer RSE certificates or minors at the undergraduate level. So we'll have to check in with 2030 and see what we have achieved or what other completely different things we've achieved that are equally amazing. Just to come back briefly to what ReSA hopes to achieve in 2024. So most of these goals are dependent on our resourcing. As I said, our organizational membership model gives us a small amount of funding just to ensure we can keep existing, but we do keep conversations going with a range of other funders on projects still, and how we can do a little more or enable the community to do a little bit more. So we do aim to have more of a focus next year on how to increase the development of community-driven task forces. As I said earlier, we'd like to create another new community. The Funders Forum has been a fantastic way over the last couple of years to really get a solid group of funders. We probably had 50 plus funding organisations engaged in those different events and forum. So how we can really use that model to engage some other parts of the community, perhaps infrastructure providers, perhaps with eVerse forming, and we'll probably have a third funders workshop late next year in September in Sweden, which might have a bit of an infrastructure focus if there's something we can do around that, or whether we can use some of the momentum of our task forces around. We've got another task force on code availability for publishers, or the Pro4RS work on university policies to form some other forums. So if anyone's interested in those kind of discussions, we'll probably trial one next year and see how it goes. We'd like to keep supporting our community managers worldwide, and to add in Latin America. If we might think about exploring the feasibility of convening a regular international research software event. It comes up every now and then. There isn't a single event. There's some fantastic major events like ReSA in the UK. I don't forget some of the other names. There are, yes. So some people might argue that there's a number of events that already do that to some degree. And so, yes, our question is if there's space for something else, and if in this economic climate there's any kind of sense in trying to create some kind of large conference event, or if that's not the way of the future. Anyway, we might do a little bit of digging around that next year. Yes, we're aiming to increase, the community work we do. We have a Slack channel we encourage you to join, sign up to our newsletter. We're also moving to LinkedIn next year, and probably decreasing or ending our involvement in Twitter/X, given some of the things that are happening over there. And we'll also be doing some work next year to develop some new strategic partnerships. We have been having great conversations with the Global Research Council about having research software represented at their event in May next year, and also recently with the Science Philanthropy Alliance. So some great conversations happening there. Just a couple of questions for you as a community you end up with. We run these occasionally, the Community Leaders Forum, but always happy to have a conversation about if you'd like to do a discussion topic at one of them. And so a good question for the community to ask is, if you're wondering what your engagement with ReSA might look like, how would it be beneficial for you to do so? Then think about if there's some outcomes your organization can't achieve on your own related to research software, where you need to collaborate with others to influence broader processes, or to access ideas from others in the global landscape, and are willing to put some energy and effort into, then we'd love to have a chat with you, or run a community leaders forum focused on your issue. A number of ways you can engage with ReSA. If you're interested, receiving updates through our regular newsletter is probably the first starting point. But there's a whole list there. Otherwise, I will stop talking now, and we can open to any questions or discussion. Thanks, folks.